Thank you for listening to Remake Rewind, the podcast where we decide if remakes and reboots should have happened. And also, now we do topic episodes. So this is our first topic episode. I'm really excited about it.
Topic
Mike,
episode.
That's Alex, our my co-host. How are you doing today, Alex?
I'm doing okay. I'm losing my mind because I've been stuck inside for
a month,
3 years now. Has it been a month?
Yeah. I've been working remotely for a month. I just finished my 4th week, technically today, working remotely. So, yeah, it's been a month of this.
I feel like it's 2023.
Quarantine. Yeah, I was reading. Obviously, there are a lot of memes and stuff out there about how to deal and cope with quarantine. And one of my favorite ones was, we no longer have days of the week. There are only 3 days: yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
And even
really
that
spoke to me. I honestly forgot today was Good Friday. Today we technically had off of work, and I had no idea. There's no semblance of dates or times or anything in my mind right now. So I am glad that I have a day where I don't have to sit at my my kitchen table and work on a laptop for 9 hours. So yeah, that's nice.
I have been getting a lot more use out of my kitchen table during all this, so that's the silver lining, I guess.
Good. Actually eating at home.
Well, I have my laptop set up on my kitchen table, so I'll eat breakfast there, but then that's where I'm, perusing Twitter or doing any writing or whatever.
Got it. What we wanted to do as we came back after, a 3-month hiatus from the show and kind of got a little bit more bringing back the segments and everything and doing a little bit of different things was one of the things that Alex and I talked about was doing topic episodes, not just doing these straight A to B movie comparisons. So I'm really excited to, just kind of talk about movies in general and not, really drill down into individual details of a film and compare it. So I'm really excited. Alex, can you tell me what our first topic is?
Yeah, we asked listeners what their holy grail don't ever do remake of these movies would be. And we got some pretty good answers, and we're going to talk about how we would reboot these movies or remake them.
So what we asked, exactly what Alex said, was what movies should never be remade. And we decided that we were going to make our elevator pitches for remake or reboots of 3 popular movies. So the top 3 results were Back to the Future, The Princess Bride, and The Godfather, in that order. And that honestly didn't surprise me. I thought for sure Back to the Future would be on there. And what kind of prompted this was a couple weeks ago, there was a deepfake video that came out with Robert Downey Jr. and Tom Holland as Doc and Marty. And people kind of lost it. And, people have been talking about Back to the Future for a long time. And that kind of made me think, hey, this could be a fun topic. And I'm a big Back to the Future fan. I watch those movies every year. I've got a DeLorean on my desk at work. It's great. So I thought this was a great first topic episode, and I'm ready to go. So what movie do you want to do first? You want to just do it in the order I said? Back to the Future, Princess Bride, Godfather?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Perfect. So I think for this one, I'll start with my pitch for actually, you know what I think we should do is maybe we should take a minute and talk about why these movies are so great and why so many people think they shouldn't be remade and why they're untouchable. Sure. So in my opinion, at least the first Back to the Future is a damn near perfect movie. I don't think there's a single wasted frame in the movie from the beginning of the movie with that kind of that continuous one shot to like the Rube Goldberg kind of thing where the Doc Brown makes his breakfast and Marty coming and skateboarding in and playing the guitar, blowing up that speaker. You see the plutonium case. You see a news thing talking about like Libyan terrorists. You see that you find out all the clocks are set like 5 minutes late or something like that, which makes Marty late for school. Then he gets a flyer about saving the clock tower, and obviously the clock tower is a huge part of the series. And the reason he keeps that flyer with him the whole movie is his girlfriend wrote her phone number on there, and he was supposed to be calling her, and she was at a place that she doesn't normally go to, so he needed to keep the phone number. So like everything is set perfectly. There's nothing wasted. Everything makes sense, and it's just the comedic timing, in my opinion, between Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd is that I honestly don't know of a duo on screen that I love as much as those 2 characters. So in my opinion, that's why a lot of people think it shouldn't be touched. But what do you say?
This might be sacrilegious or against the theme of the episode, but I actually don't think it's as much of a sacred cow as people think that it is. I think it's perfectly of its time, and it's a very well-made movie. But I think, and like Michael J. Fox and oh my god, I forgot his name.
Christopher Lloyd.
I was gonna say Lloyd Bridges, but I knew that was wrong. Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd's chemistry is fantastic, and like I think the answer for all these movies is that they are so perfectly of their time that it doesn't make any sense to remake them. There's nothing you can do that would make them better. But I think the premise of Back to the Future lends itself very well to a remake. Jumping around in the future and in the past, I think it lends itself very well to re-examining what we think of the past or what we think of the future or whatever. So I think this is the most remakeable of the three of these movies.
That I actually do agree to a certain extent that this is probably the easiest to make a reboot or a remake and do it in a bunch of different ways. I definitely think you have a lot more flexibility with this one. Just so everyone knows, we do know that as of right now, there's probably no chance of this getting remade. Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis own the rights to the movie, and they've said as long as they're alive, this will never happen.
Which is great, too. I'm not even opposed to that. That's fantastic. Don't let your movie
Which I don't even know if that's 100% true. They've been saying that for quite a while. But Tom Holland recently said that he has had discussions about this. What does that mean? Maybe has he just had his agents go talk to people and say, hey, I would like to do this? Or has there actually been discussions made with Universal?
Yeah, I mean, you and I are having a discussion about it right now, so who knows what that means. But
exactly.
The other point that I would make about this is, like, I would say the original Ghostbusters feels like a movie that shouldn't have been remade to a certain extent,
And they remade it as this one.
Yeah, I mean, I that's what I'm saying. I would put it in the same category as Back to the Future, and they remade it, and it was fine. I didn't have a problem with it. I didn't care that they were getting it was getting remade.
2016 Ghostbusters.
Yeah, but I think the interplay between the original Ghostbusters members is something that can't be replicated. It's perfectly of its time. It's its own thing.
And I also think you have to take into account how these movies got made. So I've actually been watching on Netflix over the last year or so. It's called The Movies That We Love, and it's made by the same people who do The Toys That Raised Us or whatever it's called.
Yeah, I saw that. It's good.
And they actually talked about Ghostbusters. They didn't do Back to the Future, but Ghostbusters, like if you look at like how that movie got made, like they didn't know if they actually had Bill Murray until the first day that he shot, because he never actually signed his contract. And
yeah,
like it is
they're just playing jazz.
Made. And they really are. And there's so many times, like they didn't even have the rights to the name Ghostbusters when they had the theme song written. They just lucked into everything. And this movie kind of had the same thing where it went all around, and then they got people. They actually filmed with Eric Stoltz for a while, and it just didn't work. And they recast Eric Stoltz after filming for a month. And they had to spend a ton of money to do that, but obviously Michael J. Fox made it. So with that being said, I'm ready to talk about my remake reboot pitch, and I've actually thought about this for a while. I've kind of revamped it a little bit since we decided to do this episode, but my general idea is Michael J. Fox plays Marty McFly, and the whole series, all three movies takes place roughly in about a week and a half between all the little time travel things. But he's supposed to be 17 years old, and he remembers 17 years of his life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes back in the first movie, actually makes his parents' life better. And so when he comes back to the future, his parents are more successful, they have more money, they're happier. Biff is kind of like subservient to them. But he doesn't really remember that timeline. Like, he doesn't know any of this stuff. So kind of my pitch for this movie is Michael J. Fox is back in the movie. He's older, like he is now. And most of the movie is going to take place from his son's vantage point, Marty Jr. And I actually do like the Tom Holland casting. He did say that he based his Peter Parker off of Marty McFly. You can totally see that. And, he's bankable right now, so I'm totally on board with having him in the movie. But my idea is that Marty McFly is actually going crazy. Like, he's got, like, time madness or something like that. Whatever, we're not writing the whole movie. But he goes crazy because he remembers two lives. And he can't remember which details are from this timeline or the timeline before he went back in time.
Yeah.
And so he starts to go crazy.
Time madness.
And, yeah, he's got time madness. So because he starts to go crazy, the actual overall plot I haven't really decided on. Like, part of me wants to go, like, he actually was able to keep a lot of the pieces after the train destroyed the DeLorean at the end of time, Back to the Future 3, and somehow cobbles together a time machine over years and decides that every time something goes wrong, he goes back and tries to fix it, like little stupid things. So now he has all these different memories of all the different things that he tried to fix, and he's gone crazy.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe he almost becomes like an evil Time Lord. Maybe he's like a villain of the movie, because really, there's not a true villain in these movies. Each movie you have a version of Biff, but maybe in this version, Marty has done irreparable damage to the timeline. So my original kind of idea was to have Marty Jr. partner up with Christopher Lloyd, and he's older, and just keep Christopher Lloyd in the mix. But after seeing Jojo Rabbit, I kind of like the idea of, instead of having Marty Jr. go on an adventure through time with Doc, he goes on an adventure through time with Doc's kids, who showed up at the end of Back to the Future 3. And I think those 2 kids from Jojo Rabbit are hilarious. They're great actors. They're really fun.
Kind of look like Christopher Lloyd, too.
Sorry?
I could see them being Christopher Lloyd's kids, too.
Yeah, it would totally work. Like the goofy kind of humor. And what I kind of like about it is you kind of have that switch where, you know, you had Marty was the young person being kind of guided by all these, you know, by this adult mentor. And this version, you're going to have all young people. And I want the 2 kids from Jojo Rabbit to be young geniuses. Like, they understand how time travel works, and they go through and they kind of come to Marty Jr. with the plan. And Marty Jr. goes, wait a second, how are you guys younger than me? I know you guys met my father in the 80s. And they just have like a throwaway joke, like the chubbier kid from Jojo Rabbit just kind of shrugs his shoulders, just time travel kind of thing. Like, I just kind of like that. And what I ultimately thought would be their plan, and because they're all young, they don't really think it through, is that they want to go back in time to the 50s. And I would want to set it up where, like, most of this happens in the first 40 minutes to an hour of the movie. They actually go back in time to the 50s and do all the stuff that Marty did to make his parents fall in love in such a way that they become to the 80s as more successful. And everything's great. And then also kind of sabotage the time machine at some point, like prevent Doc Brown from falling and breaking his head, which is when he decides to do time travel. So they kind of prevent all the events of all 3 movies from happening. And that way Marty Jr. is still alive, because all the events go through, and Marty is raised by the successful versions of the parents, gets married, and everything's great. And then as soon as they go and finish this, they're like, yeah, mission accomplished. The 2 kids, they start to, like, there's a photo of them where they start to disappear, and they realize by not creating the time machine, they accidentally stopped themselves from ever being born, because the time travel is what caused them to be born, because Doc Brown saved their mother from the past, and she was supposed to die.
Yeah.
So then the second half of the movie is them trying to, like, reverse what they did to save the kids.
They're time remnants.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of my
Man.
pitch. And then by having Tom Holland and these kids, it leads to being able to do, you know, another 2 or 3 movies, no problem.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's funny. There's mine is very different, but there are some like big similarities too. So I'm excited to pitch mine to you.
Let me hear your pitch, and then we'll kind of maybe spend a few minutes workshopping whatever pitch we think is the better of the 2. I don't want to say better, but the more interesting,
the more marketable.
Yeah.
All right. Mine takes place in 2050. And Michael J. Fox's Marty has taken the Doc Brown role. So he's old, and he's a scientist now. And at some point, Doc Brown has died in sort of a Schrodinger's cat experiment, or he was the cat and nobody let him out of the box. So Biff's great granddaughter, Tiff, takes on the sidekick role. And in a post Rick and Morty world, Doc Marty, don't call me that, he says, struggles to impress people with his ideas, because similar to The Simpsons, Rick and Morty did that. So one day, Tiff comes around the garage to see what Doc Marty is cooking, and comments that Rick and Morty has done everything. He shoos her out, and she goes back to school or whatever and does her thing. While she's there, though,
pretty meta.
Yeah. While she's there, it's a reboot requel. It has to be meta. But while she's there, Tiff uncovers the DeLorean and asks what it does, and Marty freaks out and kicks her out of the garage. He's sort of banned himself or anybody else from discovering or using time travel. He recognizes how dangerous it is. So after getting an A- on a test that week, which is not good for her because she gets straight A's and she can't bear to have a minus, she sneaks into the garage and makes the 2 of them accidentally time travel back to 2015. She wants to go back and fix her bad grade, and they end up going all the way back to 2015.
Oh, an accident.
Yeah. So they're walking around 2015 together. There's, the running joke is that she doesn't understand any of the primitive technology, which is what we're accustomed to. But Marty, meanwhile, is right in his element. It's 2015. Like, he's sort of in the prime of his life, or, back in the world when he was in the prime of his life. He gets all of it, and he's enjoying himself. But she convinces him that she needs to get home, back to her own timeline, and he reluctantly agrees. So they set off on a series of tasks to find fuel for the DeLorean. He runs into Doc Brown, who has returned from the Wild West after Clara Clayton, Mary Steenburgen, has died of dysentery, and he's come back to 2015. And Doc Brown convinces Doc Marty to stay and spend their lives jumping through history together, just going on adventures. Tiff is brokenhearted when Doc Marty sends her back home, but decides to stay with Doc Brown, and she watches him disappear. And Doc Brown in this case has a bit of that time madness you were talking about. Thought it was funny that you brought that up, because I kind of went the same way. So we cut back to Tiff returning to her timeline in 2050, but it's absolute chaos. In the blink of an eye, Doc and Marty have completely ruined the world with their time traveling adventures. It took her half a second to get back to 2050, but meanwhile, these two have been wrecking shop for who knows how many years or decades. At this point, Doc Brown is like a warlord, he's a time warlord. So she has to jump. Cool. She has to jump back to 2015 again, find Marty from 2050, and convince him to go back to the 2050 timeline with her, so that him and Doc don't go around wreaking havoc on the timeline, which leads to her having to actually kill Doc Brown. And
shit.
And she has to let herself fade away, this version of herself fade away as the future corrects itself, and she goes back to being A- Tiff. The movie ends with Doc Brown reappearing after being killed from a lightning strike. Tiff tried to kill him, but in some way that she does it, she ends up giving him the power to time travel without a car, and now he wants revenge. And that's the start of the second movie.
Damn.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things I like about yours. I really like the idea of flipping it and making one of Biff's relatives the kind of the hero of the movie.
Yeah, man.
I really like that aspect.
Thanks.
I don't like the aspect of Doc Brown being the villain, although I suggested that maybe Marty is the villain in mine, but because he went crazy. But Doc Brown went crazy in yours too.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to go, and I kind of thought you were going to give an alternate version of time travel. I thought you were going to say like maybe because he's been doing it so long, he created like a watch or a belt or a harness or something that could do it. I didn't expect it just to be like lightning magic time travel.
Yeah,
but
he's like what's the Thor at the end of Ragnarok?
Right. Oh, you'd have to almost say like they would write it off with some sort of like techno jargon and be like tachyons kind of thing. Like he would just be talking about how lightning, he's traveled through so much time, he's absorbed
time travel.
Yeah, he's traveled through time so often that he got tachyon bombardment, and that the lightning strike manipulated his molecules or something, so he can now control the tachyons in space time or whatever.
Yeah, or he was merged.
I
with
like
the DeLorean.
a lot of what you said.
I tried to. I went a little silly with it, but I tried to have fun.
And
writing
dark.
It. Yeah, well, the dark is the silly part. I don't think if they remade it, they would actually make it that dark. But I was trying to, I'm trying to give it a 2020 sort of gritty update.
Yeah, I went with like, let's update it, get some younger talent in, but I did kind of stick to the formula because like Back to the Future 2, they go to the future for like 30, 40 minutes, and then they go back to the 50s to try to undo the havoc they caused. So I did kind of stick to that formula a little bit. I think mine would probably be the more expensive movie because they'd either have to digitally de-age some of the actors, like Leah Thompson, if they can get Crispin Glover back because he hates this series, or they'd have to do almost like what they did in Ready Player One with the hotel from The Shining.
Yeah,
like go through and digitally do like basically recreate footage and make them virtual characters. I don't know, but I think both options would be, if we had to get a remake or reboot, I would watch either version, your pitch or my pitch.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, likewise.
Yeah.
I like your version. I think mine was fun to write, but definitely is not like no producer would greenlight it with how dark it is with Doc.
I like yours because it takes a couple of big swings, and I do appreciate when a movie tries something, whether or not it lands or sticks or whatever. But I like your swings. I do think mine's probably more bankable, like it's more likely to get made.
Yeah.
But I don't know really how I would workshop yours other than I don't know. I think maybe the ending, I would change your ending a little bit. Like maybe
I think you can't make
a
Doc
different way of time travel.
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know, but like I like killing Doc Brown is kind of like holy shit. Like I don't know, like that kind of startled me.
I think
But I like the skeleton of what you've got.
I think the
meat and
real
bones are there.
the actual like filmable version of mine is that you have to replace Time Warlord Doc Brown with a different character. Like maybe it's even like a Time Remnant, but there has to be
Or you just
there has
or
to
you
be
just give him a tumor.
there has to
and
be a
he just
good
is-
Doc Brown Prime, because you can't
Right.
like you. I mean, I know you realistically can't shit on that character, but I do think he ends up dying in this movie in the reboot, because you have to. I mean, it's like Star Wars or something. I think you have to
Yeah, I think
do a
the only
nice
thing,
send off.
the only other like comment I have on yours is Marty being a scientist. Like we'd have to find a reason. Like, and it would make sense that he would eventually do that because all three movies he was like destined to be a rock star.
Yeah.
And I would like maybe like there's a line like, yeah, I made an album, like we were successful, but you can't do it forever. And he used like his riches from being a rock star to like create like a foundation and a lab.
Maybe
I
his
think,
his band was super ahead of its time. It's like Devo or something where he's brilliant.
But I think it would make sense that if once his music career doesn't take off, or it does take off and kind of simmers out, that he would go towards science because of his relationship with Doc Brown. I like it. I think both options are good. And I think with this one, what I might want to do is ask our fans later on Instagram or Twitter which version of Back to the Future they would like to see.
Yeah, actually, I'll workshop mine really quick. I don't think that Marty needs to be a doctor in the beginning of mine. You could tweak it a little bit, and he could be like a failed rock star. And then the movie is about him realizing that he could walk in Doc Brown's shoes. So at the end of the movie, he becomes Doc Marty.
Okay, that works too. I like it.
Gives him a little arc.
All right, so I think what we need to do at this point is just find out what have you been up to this week, bud? What have you been watching?
Hey. Hey. Why are you so sweaty? I was watching Cops.
So what have you been up to, bud?
Oh man, I've just been sitting around my house. No, I've been watching a lot of movies this month, or I guess since the last time we talked, which was just under a month ago. Lots of Marvel movies.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, just kind of, comfort stuff, like just things that feel good. I've also been talking to somebody that hasn't seen a lot of them, so I've been revisiting. I bought Knives Out last month, so I watched that.
Oh, so good.
Still fantastic. I watched the Jay and Silent Bob reboot, which we're not going to talk about. I saw Incredibles 2 for the first time, which is great.
No, that was a great one as well.
I revisited Inside Llewyn Davis, which is amazing. I finally watched Godzilla King of the Monsters, which was...
Disappointing.
Yeah, it's just fine.
I think that's, out of all the stuff you've mentioned so far, that's the one that I would kind of want to talk about briefly, in that I was excited about that movie initially. I wasn't a big fan of the 2014 one, but what I really liked was Gareth Edwards, really the way he shot from ground up.
Yeah, it had a
There
lot
was
of
that
potential. I
sense
was
of scale.
excited for the next one, and I really
But the
like
new
Kong
one didn't
Skull
have
Island.
any of that scale. Like everything was filmed miles away, so you can see, Ghidorah and Godzilla fighting. So they didn't seem as massive as Godzilla seemed in the first movie. That was my biggest thing. Was like everything that was good about the last movie, because there was a lot of things I didn't like about like the human characters in the 2014 one, which I liked.
I think that's still a thing in this one. I didn't.
I
care
think
about
that's
any
still a
human
thing in this.
characters.
I liked 11. I thought she was fine. But other than that,
She's
like
barely
everybody
in it, though.
else,
Yeah.
yeah, Gary Chandler's character and like the mom, I can't remember who the actress was. Like they weren't likable, and then also just like all the stuff
Well,
that was good, the scale was gone.
They don't even need to be likable. They're just not interesting.
Yeah,
I agree with you. I just want to clarify, like, they don't have to be likable. They just have to be
That's
interesting. And they weren't really.
Yeah.
She's just
Yeah,
like,
there's
oh, I'm
nothing
kind of evil
intriguing.
now. Oh, I'm doing it for a reason. All right. And he's like, I have to
Yeah.
get my daughter back for 2 hours.
So I actually took for what I've been watching the last couple weeks. I started watching Parks and Rec. You mentioned on our last episode that
Yeah.
you were going through that, and because I'm working from home, I've wanted to have something short that I can watch. Maybe an episode or two during my lunch, or when I'm on a break, kind of get through most of an episode. So I've been watching Parks and Rec. I'm like into season 3 now. The other thing that
yeah.
I've been wanting to watch for a long time and finally got around to it was Westworld.
Ooh, yeah.
Katrina and I started watching it about 2 weeks ago. We just finished season 2 last night.
Cool.
There's only 3 episodes out of season 3 right now, so we'll probably get caught up in the next day or so on that. But watching that, it's weird because like the show really falls apart if you try to think about anything in it logically.
Much like time travel movies.
Yeah, the general premise of the series really makes no sense. Like the guns don't make sense. I read things online about how like the bullets track what kind of target it is, and it slows down if it's a human or something like that. But how do they like account for safety with knives and stuff?
Yeah, a lot of people accidentally dying in Westworld.
Yeah, so that's
But
and there's other
that show is really good at doing cool shit. So even if it doesn't hold up under scrutiny or the story doesn't kind of make sense, it's like it's flashy in all the right ways that it maintains a lot of
intriguing.
Interest.
It's definitely intriguing. Like
I'm kind of talking about the new season too. Like you're not on there yet, but they're in, futuristic Los Angeles, and it's just so cool to live in that world.
Yeah, we're gonna watch the episode 1 of season 3 probably tonight, so I'm interested in getting back. And the only other real thing that we kind of got into, we've also been watching *Halt and Catch Fire* from AMC. We were wanting to watch that for a long time, but we decided to wait until all the seasons were available on Netflix, and we weren't really doing anything. That show's fantastic. Watch it; it's great.
Yeah, dude, I completely blanked. I watched all of *Schitt's Creek* just in time for the series finale last week. It's fucking
I've tried
incredible.
to watch *Schitt's Creek* and I haven't been able to. I've watched like 3 episodes in season 1 and haven't really. It hasn't landed for me yet.
It's so good, man. Give it another shot.
I've heard it's great. I'll probably do that. And the only other thing we watched was with quarantine, you got to have some sense of normalcy and whatnot. And so for one night, Katrina and I decided to do a movie night, because Katrina and I go to the movies at least once a week when we could. We have that A-list kind of thing, so we go to a lot of movies, and that's really the only time that we put away our phones for an extended period of time. So we did a date night last Saturday where we left our phones in the bedroom. I made a grocery run, and I was able to get some movie theater style snacks. I got microwavable popcorn, got Milk Duds, and a couple other candies and whatnot. And we set up our living room as close to being like a movie theater as we could. We separated our 2 ottomans a little bit, so it was like we're in 2 reclining chairs. And we watched Little Monsters on Hulu, that zombie movie with Lupita Nyong'o. Yeah. And it wasn't great. Like, she definitely carried the movie. I don't feel like really, it's not like a good zombie movie, and it's not a great comedy. I think and it's not like a kid's movie, even though they kind of made it seem like a kid's movie as well, even though they're swearing and violence. Like, I don't think it really did any of the 3 things they were trying to do. I don't think any one part was amazing, but Lupita Nyong'o was just great. All right, so that's what we were up to the last couple weeks, and now we're going to get back to our topic, and I think we should go with Princess Bride. And why don't you tell me how you approach this remake, reboot, whatever?
All right, so this, I think, needs to be a gritty remake, sort of Game of Thrones-esque, potentially with dragons. I don't think I actually included dragons in my pitch, but I'm open to putting them in there. And I think the sex and violence just needs to be dialed up to 11. This is like a hard R, or maybe even an HBO miniseries. Ready?
Ready.
All right.
I went the exact opposite, so I'm really interested to see how you went.
Did you make it like an animated kids version?
No, it's different. Okay. I think you'll appreciate it.
All right.
Or you'll hate it. I don't know.
My Princess Bride opens with full frontal male nudity as the hyper-ripped Wesley towels off after a shower. Buttercup sees this, and they have sex in the farmhouse. He sets off to seek his fortune so that he can marry, but he's captured by the dread pirate Roberts, who is explained in this version in graphic detail to be the madman of the seas, with a penchant for mutilating his victims. I don't know how to pronounce the Sicilian's name, which is terrible for me. Is it Vizzini?
Yeah, okay. Vizzini.
I haven't watched this movie in a long time. Vizzini is played by a digitally recreated James Gandolfini. Andre the Giant's part is replaced with Gwendolyn Christie in prosthetics and like Charlize Theron monster makeup. And Inigo Montoya is gender swapped to be a woman, obviously. And he's played by some Spanish supermodel in her first acting role. The scene at the top of the cliffs of, and it just roughly follows the plot of the original movie, but with these sort of changes. The scene at the top of the cliffs of insanity alone cost $50 million to shoot. It's a massive set piece, which occupies a third of the runtime of the movie. Or if it's a miniseries on HBO or whatever, then it's like a 2-part episode. Wesley loses an arm halfway through the movie. Instead of Humperdinck simply orchestrating Buttercup's death and trying to start a war with the neighboring country, which I think is called Gilder, he plans on having her tortured for a week in the town square, leading up to her death, and then wants to commit genocide on the people of Gilder to steal their resources so that he can construct a super weapon, which he's going to leverage to take over the rest of this fantasy world.
Oh, damn.
Wesley is actually killed, like on screen in this version, but he's revived by black magic, leaving him mostly human, which is a little nod to the original.
Got it.
But now he's got an occasional need for human blood. The wedding at the end is an absolute massacre, as you can imagine. Inigo Montoya does some sexy dance fighting before slicing Rugen into 20 pieces, Resident Evil style, and he just sort of slides apart. Buttercup ends up committing suicide. I think she's close in the first one, but in this one she actually commits suicide. But she's going to be brought back by the same black magic that brings Wesley back, and then they can live happily ever after, both as vampires. And the storytelling wraparound narrative that's like the grandfather and the little kid, the original one, Peter Falk and Fred Savage, is going to be done with Kevin Spacey reading on an iPad to Finn Wolfhard, who's just kind of sassing him the whole time. And I imagine that's not going to test well. So my backup idea is Seth Rogen as the grandfather and Jonah Hill playing the kid. Or
Stupid.
George R. R. Martin play the grandfather and Robert Kirkman playing the kid.
Oh, okay. Completely different than what I thought that was going to go. I think, once again, some big swings, and I can see why you would go that way, because what's funny is I love this movie, and I know about a year ago, Sony kind of like put their toe in the water and mentioned that they were considering doing this because there was a Princess Bride musical.
Slap down immediately.
And the internet like collectively was like, fuck you, Sony. Don't do this. Yeah. So I think going the complete opposite could be a way to justify it.
Well, I mean, listen, this is why I took such a big silly swing with this one, because unlike Back to the Future, I don't think that Princess Bride needs to be remade or should be remade. Like, this is one of the ones that is just perfect for what it is. They're not going to do anything that's similar that approaches how good Princess Bride is, so they shouldn't even try. And there's no, like, it's timeless. You know, it takes place in a fantasy land, and it's just about, love and adventure. There's nothing like, there's no updating. There's no 2020 version of this with cell phones or something that is interesting or makes any sense.
So I agree with what you're saying. So I know you went and watched. Did you watch all 3 movies?
I watched 0 of these movies.
Oh, because originally you said you were gonna watch all 3, and I was like, I'm not going to. I watched Back to the Future 2 or 3 times a year. It's one of my favorite movies.
I intended to, and you'd think being stuck inside, all I'd want to do is watch these 3 movies, and I was like, now I'm just gonna write about them.
That's funny. I thought you did, because we were supposed to record like last weekend. You're like, oh, I haven't watched the movies yet, I'm gonna watch them. So that's pretty funny. But I ended up watching Princess Bride again, just because it'd been a few years. I'm like, it's been a long time, I actually will watch this one. So I went with the safe reboot, one that it might piss people off because it's too similar, but I think this would be bankable right now with the 2 stars that I picked and the way I did it. So my idea is a little closer to the book. So I don't know if you've ever read the book.
I've not.
The book and the original movie were written by the same person. But the book is not about a grandfather reading the story to his sick grandson. There's elements to that, but the book is actually the kid. The main person who's like the narrator of the story was like the kid character, and his father read him the book every time he was sick. So in the book, he went through and decided he was going to reread it, and then he realizes like the book is like ridiculously thick, like encyclopedia thick. It's just an encyclopedia, like in How I Met Your Mother. It's like an encyclopedia. It's super thick, and it will go and have hundreds of pages talking about like the fashion of Gilder kind of thing, or there'll be a battle, and then they'll talk about for hundreds of pages every detail of every note of every meeting of how they came up with the armistice agreement kind of thing. So it was just a really boring story, and the guy as an adult realizes that his dad basically read the story, memorized it, and cut out all the boring bits. So in my version of the movie, it's closer to that, and you have Ryan Reynolds is a father. He's in publishing, and his son is sick, and he's got a deadline. Like, he has to pitch him a new book to his publishing company. Like, they need the next big thing, or the publishing company is going to like go under or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so he really shouldn't be taking any time off, but his son is sick, and his wife is like really pushing him to be a better father. The generic father-son kind of movie.
Yeah, I think that's a genre in the late 80s, early 90s. Bad dad movies.
You're right. So it's kind of like that. And so he decides he's going to read The Princess Bride to his son. And the same realization, he starts reading it and he goes, what the fuck is this? Like, this is boring. So he goes through and does the same thing where he kind of edits it out. And that's his big idea, is that he is going to pitch The Princess Bride as the new book for them to come to, for his publisher. So at the end of the movie, you know, yay, he's a great dad. Yay, he came up with the book and they're really successful and whatever. And so basically what the movie is, when you're in the fantasy elements, when we're not, you know, seeing the kid in the room sick, is him kind of reading it, and he's reading it and then kind of fumbling through it and coming up with the details as he can, because he's trying to eliminate everything. And so a lot of the characters will be characters you see in the real world. So like his boss would be like Vizzini, the Sicilian, and he has to, you know, outwit his boss. And the giant will be maybe one of his rivals at the company or something like that. So every character in the fantasy world has a doppelganger in the real world.
Right.
And I want it to be a little bit more accurate to the book. So in the books, Princess Buttercup is like an idiot. Like, everybody talks about how stupid she is. Like, even Wesley's like, you're such an idiot. I don't know if that plays in you know, go woke, go broke culture, but it is a big part of the book that she's kind of dumb. And so I kind of thought it would be fun, because I haven't seen Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively in anything together, but actually get the real life couple together in it. And so ultimately what it would be is Blake Lively would be Princess Buttercup, and you would have Ryan Reynolds as Wesley and the Dread Pirate Roberts. And you would go through a lot of we would see a lot of the same beats that we saw in the original one, obviously updated special effects and graphics. But what I want to add is make Prince Humperdinck seem more menacing, because in the movie he's really not that menacing. He is a great tracker and a great hunter, but really, as soon as he gets any kind of confrontation, he just kind of like buckles down and runs away. He's afraid of Wesley like the entire movie.
Right.
In the books, and in the movie they refer to it, but in the books he is the greatest hunter, and he actually will capture the most dangerous beasts in all the world. And in the place where Wesley got tortured in the original movie, he actually had to, when he escaped, he had to actually go through this, like, I think it was like 18 levels of, and each level is like, one might be a desert, one might be a forest, one might be, you know, something else. And they have creatures that are very specific to that level, and he kind of has to fight his way up. And that's just another, you know, action beat that you can have. But I think that also makes the villain much more menacing, is that he's also had to defeat these monsters. And I would actually want to see a proper fight between Prince Humperdinck and Wesley.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where mine is. It's the safer one. It's not the hard gritty reboot from the mid 2000s that you did, but that's where I kind of would want to go. And obviously Ryan Reynolds is blowing up with Deadpool, and he's got that new movie coming out later this year, Free Guy, that looks great. And so he's kind of the breaking the fourth wall guy, and I could see this movie breaking the fourth wall a bit. So maybe it's typecasting.
You know that he referenced Princess Bride with the Deadpool 2 marketing.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, the whole Deadpool, I can't remember what it was called.
Once Upon a Deadpool or something?
Once Upon a Deadpool, which I saw it. He had Fred Savage as an adult.
Yeah.
But I just think Ryan Reynolds, like, obviously he's handsome and funny, and, you know, he's bankable. So I think that's the way you do it. If you go, hey, we're going to make this movie. Sony decides to make the mistake and remake this movie. Get somebody that's really likable. People love him right now. His social media is great. He's got his aviation gin commercials that are all like on point. Like when Peloton had that controversial ad, he immediately cast the actress to do an aviation gin commercial. So I'm a big fan of Ryan Reynolds, and I think if anybody can make this movie work, make it a maximum effort production company, and let Ryan Reynolds do his thing on this.
Well, I think you've got a great idea for just a movie. I would say it should not be Princess Bride remake. It should just be its own thing, and you can replace the fantasy plot of Princess Bride with whatever you want, because the real plot of what you're doing is Ryan Reynolds and his kid and the publishing and stuff. So I think you could actually write this as a real movie and just, you know, change it so that it's not Princess Bride, but keep the elements that you're bringing to that idea.
Oh, what I failed to mention, exactly what you're saying, is this was originally some other spec script that a Sony executive went, hey, that could be a Princess Bride remake. Because that's how Hollywood actually works.
Huh.
So many movies start out as something else, and then they just, like, I'm pretty sure when we talked about Doom, I'm sure the one that the Rock version was originally a spec script for something else. And just like, that's Doom.
Yeah, 100%.
So
I think you should reverse engineer that. You should just write your own script based on this and make it, you know, not Princess Bride, but similar enough.
Right.
And I
But
mean,
yeah, that's my pitch.
mine's ridiculous. Mine's not going to get made.
Oh, yours has no way in hell. I think mine is probably once again the one that's most likely to get made. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but I think yours has the bones of an original movie that it just has similarities, but is can
Oh,
be
it's not
its own
original at all. I copied the plot of the book.
thing. No, what I'm saying, like, yeah, I'm not saying that you have written the most original thing in the world, but
Oh yeah, absolutely.
you could actually write that script and just change enough that it's inspired by Princess Bride, but it doesn't have to carry the name, and then it could actually be, a decent little movie. Which, if it was Princess Bride remake, if it was branded as that, it probably would not do very well.
Yeah, who knows? But
Yeah, write that, man.
I'm not really a writer though. I should. I have great ideas like that, but I never follow through. Like
Well, hold on. I wouldn't call it a great idea.
Yeah. Like I've started a novel twice and then like wrote like 20 pages and I'm like, I had to start school or something or whatever.
The same novel?
Like, oh, no. Yeah. Yep. I've started like two
So
in my life.
You started two different novels and not followed through.
Two different ones that only got maybe 15 to 20 pages in before I had to go back to school. This was when I was much younger, like early 20s. And I was like, yeah, I've got an idea for a book. I'll write a book.
We should note that Mike is 57 years old.
All right. So I think we should get to the news and then we'll wrap up the episode with The Godfather. Yeah, we're going to talk about the news now. Movie news. Not a lot of news out there in terms of...
Yeah, surprisingly.
There really isn't because obviously everything's been canceled. So, the last time we spent a lot of time talking about movies getting canceled, Disney's pushed more of them out to, the end of the year. Basically, every Marvel movie got pushed one movie. So we were supposed to get Black Widow next month in May. In November, we were supposed to get The Eternals, and basically they just pushed. And then next year, we were supposed to have Shang-Chi in, I want to say, March, and that got pushed later in the year, and Eternals got pushed to that. But
yeah, everything just
really
moved a slot.
Yeah, they just moved the slots. A lot of other movies, since we talked last, got pushed to digital. So Disney's Onward, which is also a Pixar movie, got pushed to digital on Disney Plus after only being in theaters for 2 weeks. Bloodshot was only in theaters for about a week before they pushed it to digital. And
was Onward even in theaters?
Onward was in theaters for 2 weeks. Huh. It came out March 10th or something like that.
Oh, no way. I saw that last week. It was pretty good.
Yeah, we're gonna watch it tonight, actually.
Hey, does anybody care about Bloodshot?
I actually kind of want to see it. I don't expect it to be good, but I've heard it's actually pretty entertaining. If you just go in expecting what it is, the whole movie's in the trailer, the plot. But a lot of people are complaining about this model. For years, people have been saying movies should come out on video on demand the same day as theaters, and the reason they don't do that is obviously they make all their money at the theaters. If they do it on video on demand, it's just going to get pirated, and they're not going to make any money off of it. Or not any money, but a lot less.
Yeah, and it cheapens the experience.
I agree. I'm a big proponent of going to the theater. I go, like I said, every week when I was able to. Yeah. And I think that's a big thing. So a lot of these movies, like Bloodshot, was $20 to rent. The Hunt, which was already delayed and canceled once, came out for $20. And then Birds of Prey actually was $20, and they just dropped it to $5. And now it's coming out in 2 weeks on Blu-ray. So now you can buy it and get a digital copy now, which I did yesterday.
Yeah, I like that movie.
But a lot of people are complaining about $20 rentals. And I'm like, that's actually, for movies that were supposed to be in the theaters, I think that's more than reasonable.
Yeah, I agree.
And a lot of people online that I've seen were just bitching about it. And I'm like, how much does it cost for you to go to the movies? Do you have A-list or anything? No, it would cost you, let's say $10 is the national. I think that national average is $9 for a movie. But let's just say $10 for the sake of math. If you go to the movie by yourself, you're spending that money, the $10 plus gas and your time to drive there and back. You're paying $20. You get to watch a movie that was supposed to be for the big screen. And you can have, well, obviously it's quarantine, so you can't really have friends over, but your whole family could watch it. Yeah. To me, I think $20 for a movie that was supposed to be in theaters is good. I haven't rented any of them just because I'm spoiled with A-list. I'm I pay $20 a month for 12 movies. I'm not going to pay $20 for one. But if I didn't have A-list, I would have paid $20 to watch Birds of Prey at home.
Yeah, I think, I don't think movies like Black Widow or Birds of Prey are going to be video on demand after this thing's over, but I think there will be more. I think Onward makes sense for video on demand. I think The Hunt makes sense for day and date, and also The Hunt feels like a movie that would have done that anyway. The video on demand is something that the horror community has been doing for a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think we'll see more of those, but I don't think that the big event movies will
Yeah, and definitely not like Black Widow and like Mulan is another one. A lot of people are like, that should go to Disney Plus. I don't think so. And I think those two movies in particular would send, we're in go woke, go broke culture. We're all woke now. I think if you were to take Black Widow, who arguably should have had a movie years ago before Captain Marvel, it's already kind of a slap in the face of that character that she didn't get her own movie already. And if you were to shelve that movie and put it on video on demand, I think a lot of people would get pissed. Like, this is the movie we've been waiting for forever. This is an experience. Like, why is this one okay to just push to on demand? Yeah. So I don't think they're going to do that. And Mulan they need to appeal to the Chinese market. They're not going to, they did a lot of things with Mulan. Like, they took out Mushu because having a dragon as a side character is considered offensive, apparently. And that's why it's not there. They really want.
They should have just had the dragon played by Tilda Swinton.
It wouldn't be terrible, but they're not going to have a dragon as a side character or like a sidekick. So I kind of get it. But that movie's going to be $1 billion movie. They're not going to release that in
and same thing with Black Widow. I think I've seen people say that it's going to be $1 billion movie too.
Oh, it might be. I honestly, like, the trailers haven't really made me super excited. I'm definitely going to watch it. I think it looks good, but I don't think it looks like a $1 billion movie. I don't think it'll do billion. I think it'll probably do 700-800 million.
Yeah, I tend to agree, but the fact that we're having this conversation is enough, like, it's going to make a lot of money.
It's going to make a ton of money, like, and it should.
Yeah.
And I'm glad. And David Harbour's in it. I've actually met David Harbour several times. He's a really nice person.
Yeah, Scarlett Johansson is in it. I think she's great.
And Rachel Weisz. I'm excited about the movie, but that's really all the news that I have is just more of the cancellation stuff. I don't really have anything.
Yeah.
Like, hey, these are new movies.
I got. Well, I guess it's not really news; it's more of a review. But I've been playing Doom Eternal since the last episode, and it's really fun.
I want to get it.
The news is that Doom Eternal came out, and it's sick as fuck.
You should let me borrow. Did you buy it digitally or on a physical copy?
Digitally.
Damn it! You can't let me borrow it. Never mind. All right. Well, I think we should wrap up the episode with. Honestly, it's funny. The movie I care the least about, but it's honestly considered one of the greatest movies of all time, The Godfather. And we didn't really talk about why The Princess Bride was untouchable. We kind of did, but
yeah, I think I touched on it.
Yeah, you did. The Godfather, I get. It is for the budget that it had, for the time, for the amount of actors, the amount of different storytelling elements that are in there. It is an incredible movie. I didn't see the movie until about 5 years ago. I've spent 26 years being told how amazing that movie is, and it's the greatest movie of all time. I have so many friends who are like, that's their favorite movie. And I honestly, I think some people inflate that movie because they don't want to be controversial. Because I've asked friends who say it's their favorite movie, like, what about it? It's just the greatest movie. Like, they can't say why they like the movie. And I think it's an unpopular opinion not to like the movie.
Well, this is part of why it shouldn't be remade, because there's a certain amount of magic that you can't explain that just is that movie. It's those actors. It's that story. It's the time that it was made. It's the way that it was shot. It's everything about it. Like, you just can't recapture that magic, even if it's imperfect.
But you just said
it pales in comparison if you try to recreate it. It just feels fake.
And that's perfectly valid. And what you just said, even though you didn't really go into specific detail, like, oh, this actor's performance, like, these actors, the way they made it, the time, like, that you could say. But so many people aren't in film like you are, and aren't like film buffs like me. But a lot of people just can't even say, like, put into any words why they like the movie. I honestly do think same thing with Scarface. I think Scarface is an overrated movie. It's definitely worth watching, but I think hip hop culture absolutely kind of inflated that movie in the early 2000s. Because for the longest time, like, every guy in our age range was like, this is the greatest movie ever. And it's like, yeah, there's some great things about the movie, but is it the greatest movie ever? It definitely isn't. There's definitely flaws in the movie. The character is a terrible person, like, and that's fine, having a movie about a terrible person. But there's certain things about that movie that aren't perfect. And I think for me, I don't have a lot about how I would remake this movie. The reason I think it shouldn't be remade is a couple. One, it is a very, very good movie. I think it's perfect. No, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. But I just think, just like Westerns, you can't have that many Westerns out right now. Like, most Westerns don't do well. There was a time and a place when the Western ruled the world, and then in the late 70s, early 80s, even going into the 90s to a bit, mobster movies, the Italian mob was kind of like the Western for a while.
Yeah, and now we have superhero movies.
Yeah, right now it's superhero movies, totally. So right now, I don't think you can really do this. Departed was very good, and it kind of had similar themes to this with Scorsese. Scorsese just did The Irishman, and I have issues. I think Scorsese is amazing. I like pretty much every single one of his movies. I think he's a bit of a hypocrite right now because he's made a couple big budget movies. Like The Irishman, he spent something like $160 million on that movie, and then says, "Oh, Marvel movies are just just roller coaster amusement parks. They're not actually movies. They have inflated budgets. You shouldn't need that much money to make a movie." But then he spent he spent more money than a lot of superhero movies, like more money than any of the Deadpool movies, Hellboy movies.
I didn't see him say that you shouldn't spend that much money.
He did. He did say something along those lines that it's just pumping money, and too much special effects and everything. And the whole draw to The Irishman is the de-aging of Pesci, Robert De Niro, and Al Pacino. And there are parts of yes, their faces look younger, but they don't look like they did, 30 years ago. They made them look younger, but it doesn't really look like the actors when they were younger to an extent. And they move like 70 to 80-year-old men. There's certain things we said, the draw to that movie is they're supposed to be younger, and I don't think it worked on every level. But also that's that kind of movies, that mob movie, and I know a lot of people liked it. I know a lot of people thought it was boring, and that Scorsese had to go to Netflix. He mentioned that it's harder for him to get money from movies because they don't think they're going to make money in theaters, and I think he's right. I do think he's right that if you were to make a Godfather remake, it wouldn't make as much money because one, people kind of put The Godfather on a pedestal, and two, people don't really care about mob movies anymore. So I think that's the biggest reason why you shouldn't make it. To me, is that it's just, I don't think we're in a time frame where that movie, no matter what you did, I don't think it would make a ton of money. But my biggest thing is I don't think it's perfect. There's a lot of editing issues in The Godfather. There's a lot of points where the audio is muffled. They didn't have money to go back and do things. There are a lot of things, people online who complain about the movie and nitpick oh, the American flag had 50 stars, or there's that person's watch wasn't made until 5 years after this movie was made, or that car is from 1948 but that scene took place in 1947. That shit's a little nitpicky,
a little,
that stuff bothers me. But there's certain, I remember watching it, and there's a scene where somebody's shooting at Vito, and it kind of goes to a bird's eye view, and you see a flash, but there's no audio there. There's no gunshot. There's little things like that. There's scenes where you can see blood coming out of a person, the prosthetic that they're going to use, the squib. You can see the blood before it gets shot. There's scenes where you actually see people dressed like hippies through windows, and even Coppola said, yeah, there's a lot of stuff we couldn't do because of budget. I totally noticed the hippies, but there's nothing we can do because it was the second set. It was a different, what's the term when it's not the main set, it's not the director actually directing the scene. Second unit. It was a second unit shot, and I noticed it during the edit. But then there's also things, like I mentioned, with audio that doesn't work. There's also a scene where Sonny's in a fight, and you can see the punch clearly misses, but they still chose in post to add a slap kind of thing. There's certain things where it's you can clearly fix the audio if you added that in post. Why would you not add the gunshot in post?
Mike, it sounds like you hate this movie.
I don't hate it. No, I don't. I don't hate the movie. I think it is a movie. I just think so many people say it's perfect. It's unfixable. There's nothing wrong with the movie. It is a perfect movie from, every frame is perfect, and it's not. So my thing is, I'm not saying we should make the movie, but I'm saying if you were to remake it, I would just want something that's tightly edited, doesn't have those issues. No matter what movie, you're going to have continuity issues where somebody drinks a glass of water and then the next shot comes back and the glass of water 6 inches to the right, whatever. That stuff doesn't bother me. You're right. Oh, that's bad. But I think if you were to remake this, I think you just remake it with, get the best talent you actually can get. Maybe have Robert De Niro come back and play Vito again.
So hold on. Are you saying if they remake The Godfather, it should be the same story, just made better, but
tweak it a little bit,
still set
tweak
in
it a little
1940,
bit, make it a
whatever.
little tighter,
but same setting, same everything.
Yeah, I think do that, or maybe you can change the decade or something. But I think the meat and bones should stay the same. I just don't think you should make this movie because it's just not going to do well. I can't see how you would do this in a way that's commercially viable. But yeah, I don't really have a pitch other than just, if you're going to do it, just do another Godfather movie. Maybe change the decades, maybe push it to maybe further in the past or move it forward, make it take place in the 50s and 60s. I don't know. Like, maybe set it in Vegas kind of thing. Like, I don't know. Like, change it a little bit. Like, have allusions to the Rat Pack. Yeah, I think maybe that's the thing is, you change the setting and put it in Vegas.
Yeah. All right.
So that's it. I don't really have any hard pitches for it.
All right. I have my fun pitch that's similar to the last two, and then I think I just thought of a real pitch that I'll give you afterwards.
Okay.
It's not a pitch, but just a recommendation if they actually try to do this. So the fun one is, this is a total reboot, so it's not a sequel or anything like that. This is just totally new story, but sort of follows the formula of the original. The one holdover, as you do, is that De Niro is in the Brando role, which I think you said too. And that's just sort of a nod to the original movie.
Yeah, I like it.
But I was thinking about all the alternate history stuff that's very popular right now. Man in the High Castle, and there's a new show on HBO where there's like one tweak where like I don't think it's that Nazis won World War II. It's something else. It's the plot to destroy America, but there's some little tweak, some little alternate history that involves the Nazis or whatever. So that sort of informed my my thinking here. So it's 2020, takes place currently. The thing that changed is that the Nazis won World War II. It's 2020, and Hitler's son is about to give up the Führership and retreat to self-exile after naming his successor. That's the setting. Michael Creutzfeldt returns home from New Berlin, which is just New York. It's still in the U.S., but it's, Nazi states now. He returns home from a military mission to colonize Antarctica and attends his sister's wedding. After a gang fight escalates, Mikhail assassinates a rival boss who's planning to kill his father, Victor, instead of Vito, still similar to the Godfather, and has to go back to Germany to escape retaliation instead of Italy. He returns home to United Nazi States, takes the reins of the family, and puts out hits on all of the rival gangs during his son's graduation from Hitler Youth. And the movie ends with Hitler's son's dying and Mikhail moving the family to the vice capital of the United Nazi States, Salt Lake City, as opposed to Las Vegas. Now, this is a planned trilogy. So, in the second movie, in the second Godfather, there's, the parallel stories of how Vito rose to power after immigrating to the United States, along with how Michael consolidates power in Las Vegas and stuff. So this one is going to tell parallel stories in the same way of Mikhail attempting to install a puppet advisor to Hitler Jr.'s successor, who died in the previous.
Hitler Jr.
Yeah, he's Hitler Jr. Of course, he would be Adolf Jr. You know what I mean? So he tries to install a puppet advisor to his successor, ensuring the Creutzfeldt's family's influence on the government. And that takes place alongside a flashback narrative of his father, Victor, coming to the United Nazi States from Nazi Germany and rising to power in New Berlin following the death of the first Adolf Hitler as Hitler's son solidifies power in the remaining free countries of the world. And then the third movie is basically just a remake of Ocean's 11, but it's in this universe. It's directed by Josh Trank.
Josh Trank. Oh, he's going to get some work again.
Yeah, this will be his Jurassic World. So that's my pitch for the Godfather reboot.
You went all aboard, I don't know where my brain's going. It stopped working. You just went for it. You did a whole trilogy.
Well, I left off the part on the moon, but maybe that'll happen in the third one.
So really quick, just because I got a notification for it, I'm not going to go and edit it back to the new segment, but I just got a notification that they are officially doing a remake of the Disney animated version of Robin Hood, and they're going to do photorealistic animals. Looks like it's going to go to.
That makes sense.
Carlos Lopez Estrada is currently attached to it, and he directed Blind Spotting, so that's interesting. But yeah, breaking news.
Blind Spotting's fantastic. Go see it if you haven't.
But yeah,
cool.
Breaking news.
That'll probably be really good.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a news story for you.
Cool.
Put that in your pipe and smoke it, and
put that on your plate.
I think by default, your version of the remake is the one that I would choose from R2 because I really didn't have much.
Well, you basically want to do like a very not frame
just
for
a straight
frame,
up remake.
Yeah, you just want to straight up remake it, and mine's sort of an update.
It's almost like the two versions. Well, there's more than two versions of King Kong, but like the 1939 version and the Jack Black version, like the meat and potato, the meat and bones are pretty much the same, but there's more added to it. Like the monsters are a little bit different and everything. But yeah, that's probably the way I would look at it.
In a serious way, and this is going to tie into my actual pitch for this. I think the only way to remake The Godfather is to make it today and put it in a total. I don't think it should be in the U.S. or it should be in a different city or a different type, different version of a city, different version of New York. And I think you can keep all the soapy family drama and mobster action, but I think it needs to be in a different time and place, and you have to be able to sort of comment on what's happening in the world now to make it interesting. So with that in mind, my actual pitch would be to put it in the hands of Bong Joon-ho, have it take place in Korea, and just let him do whatever the fuck he wants with it. That's how I think you make a good Godfather.
You want to hear something stupid? He's obviously blowing up because of Parasite. Parasite's now on Hulu in various places around the world, and people are losing their minds over this movie because so many people heard how great this was, and obviously it deservedly won Best Picture at the Academy Awards this year. It's an incredible film, but people, for whatever reason, because Americans are stupid and lazy generally, they didn't realize that it was a subtitled movie. So people are like pissed that it's a subtitled movie on American Hulu, kind of thing. Like it's ridiculous, and like I used to be, when I was younger, I used to hate subtitled movies. But then I realized as I've gotten older and watching things like Parasite and, just there's so many great foreign films out there, like Seven Samurai, if I didn't get over this disdain for, I don't want to say disdain, but I used to not want to watch subtitled movies or black and white movies. But when you watch a movie like that, it forces you to put your phone down and actually pay attention and get immersed in the world. And I think
it's a ridiculous
instant gratification.
Sorry, it's a ridiculous mindset to be in. Like, I'm only going to look at paintings from American painters. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
I'm only going to listen to music from people that live in my state. Like, fuck off.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, idiot. But it's a fantastic film, and anybody should watch it and actually pay attention because there's so much like subtlety in the way they're acting and the shit going on in the background. It's a fantastic film. Get over your hate of subtitles.
Well, and what's ridiculous too is that there's so many filmmakers, American filmmakers working in Hollywood for decades that have been massively influenced by, French New Waves, Kurosawa, Japanese movies, like Italian movies, spaghetti westerns. Like there's so much innovation from other parts of the world.
And we remake
and that
all the best
doesn't mean that
movies
we
from
don't.
everyone else.
That doesn't mean that Americans don't make good movies. It just means that it's a global art form, and to cut yourself off from all of your neighbors is ridiculous. And
I agree.
And the people that you like, if it's James Gunn or Christopher Nolan or Francis Ford Coppola or whatever, all these people are influenced, Scorsese, all these people are influenced by foreign
Star
filmmakers.
Wars.
Yeah.
Star Wars.
Yeah, Hidden Fortress.
Well, Star Wars, you look at he based all of his stuff off of like the Kurosawa films. Like the Jedi are very much based off the samurais, and then you go and you look at even in Mandalorian, there's a whole episode that's basically the plot of Seven Samurai.
Yeah, it's absurd. I only enjoy the copies of the things that I won't watch. I'm not going to watch the actual things. Okay.
Yeah, that's insane. So I think we're good. I actually really enjoyed our first topic episode. We're going to be doing more of these as well. Let us know what you think, and what we'll do is we'll maybe wait a couple of days after this episode airs and go on Instagram, Twitter, whatever, and do polls, and you let us know which versions of remakes from The Princess Bride, Back to the Future, and Godfather you prefer, Alex's version or my version. And let us know if there are any other topics that you guys would like us to do, any fan casting, like give us something, and maybe we do an episode where there's a bunch of characters you give us and we have to fan cast. I don't know, but we're open to doing a lot more topic episodes. But Alex, before I wrap up the episode, where can our listeners follow you on social media?
I'm on Instagram. It's at Dysalexic, DYSALEXIC, and I'm on Twitter at Polishi, my last name, P as in Paul, ULISCI.
Check him out. He posts a lot of great stuff. He's got some merchandise on his Instagram that he's pushing, some fucked up repugnant shit t-shirts that are awesome. Thank you. Support him there.
I also just released some social distance social club shirts.
Ah, I haven't seen those ones yet. I'll have to take a look.
Yeah.
And then if you want to follow the podcast, we're bringing back Ruin My Childhood in about 2 weeks. So Ruin My Childhood's coming back, which is great. That's the podcast I host with my wife, Katrina. That's coming back soon. But check out everything that's MDXpods related at mdxpods.com. You can listen to episodes on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, on the web, on YouTube. If you want to follow us on social media, we're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, all at MDXpods. But that's it. Thanks for listening. Continue to check it out. Like, subscribe, all of the above. And, of course, like and subscribe and follow Alex. Thanks for listening.
Remake, Rewind.